What's up, YouTube family? Before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it helps out the show so much. And now, let's enjoy the show.
A lot of women do fumble great guys because you weren't ready to date in the first place. The narrative is always like, now he's dating someone else, and like narrative is because she's weak. Sometimes it's not that he played you, sometimes he just got to know you.
The SelfHype Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SelfHype Podcast. I'm your host, Eli Vasquez, brought to you by Chobo Studios. And we have a good one. We have a good old episode in Fumi, content creator, dating, relationship, life coach, and lawyer. Okay. We have so much fun and games in this, but we focus on you being in your truth. Staying in your truth, know that you are allowed to be in your truth. The benefits of being in your truth when it comes to life and in dating and to finding the right one. She is a phenomenal human being that does not pull back any punches. She dives in with their love and perspective, and I'm so excited for you to jump into this episode. Let's get it. So I've tons of questions for you, and I know, I love how, just to the point you are in these digital streets. I'll scroll and see you, and I love your reaction to all these videos. Like you have this thoughtful, beautiful, intentional ridiculousness, show of, you see all the chaos of these TikTok streets, and you just are able to package it in such a way that's digestible, but also informative for your followers and listeners. And it's such a treat to look at. But we have a lot to dive into. But first I want to hear about you. I want to hear about your story. Okay. I want to hear how'd you get into this space of creating this Mahamaven brand, and also the lawyer thing as well. That's freaking badass. So hit me with it. Talk to me about the origin story.
I mean, I feel like the lawyer thing, I almost have to credit my parents for as well. I'm Nigerian, and I really had three options. It was law, medicine, or engineering. In the last 10 years, that's expanded to include the MBA, but that was just never my thing. I started I remember in high school, I really thought I was going to be a surgeon, just
wow.
let's all get together and laugh. I think because that was just, being Nigerian, growing up Nigerian, having Nigerians all around me, it just felt like that was really just the only option. But in college, I took a government class, which is what we used to call poli-sci, where I went to undergrad. And I just remember falling in love with it. And I came home. And this is long drawn out explanation, but whatever. I came home, and it was the summer after my freshman year. And I was all right, I've got to take some science classes, because I loved the poli-sci classes I took, but my parents are, super gung-ho about me doing the medicine thing. And I remember my brother, so my little brother, he and I were raised like twins. We're 2 years apart. He says to me, why are you doing this? You hate this. You're miserable. And I'm I don't know. It's not that bad. He was no, you hate it. It's so obvious. Just grow some, and tell mom and dad that you hate it and you want to do something else. I see how you loved your poli-sci classes. Just tell them you want to do something else. So I'm oh my God, okay, fine, but you have to come with me.
I love the sibling, no BS cutthroat. You don't want to do this.
Yeah. He's just stop. You're taking bio classes over the summer and you are hating it. You're miserable.
Yeah.
So we go to my parents' room, and I'm I can't, I don't want to do this. I want to be a lawyer. I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. I just come off of this huge debate competition. It was my first debate ever. And I ranked pretty high nationally, and I was just I feel like I'm good at it. And so my mom, who's a sage, she's the wisest person I've ever met. She's a nurse, and she goes, okay, let's go downstairs, because we would always hold important meetings in my parents' room. They would hold court, make your case. So they're let's go downstairs. And so we go downstairs, and she breaks out the bio textbook, and she's oh, so take notes on this page. and Osa's my brother, by the way. And he's like a science guy. He draws like a diagram and maybe a couple labels and whatever. And then she's like, all right, Fumi, take notes on this page. And I'm like writing longhand, like, and bullet points and all of this stuff. And my mom turns to my dad and she goes, she's not a doctor.
Wow.
Her brain just doesn't work that way. She's like, I don't know how we missed it, but like, she's just not. And I was just like, it reminded me of like, I don't know if you've heard that Solomon story with the two moms and the baby, and like one of them's like cut it in half. And Solomon,
sounds like a Jerry Springer episode. I don't know what is this story?
So, there's this king Solomon, right?
Yeah.
And like one of his first like tests as a king is two women come to him, and they like share a bed. They live in the same place, and they both have babies. And so in the middle of the night, one of them rolls over and suffocates like their baby, but then she switches them. So she takes the other woman's healthy baby and swaps it out for her baby that she's just like smothered to death by accident. And so they go to King Solomon and they're like tussling because the one who like accidentally killed her baby is like, she stole my baby. She's pretending that like it's actually hers. Yeah. So King Solomon's like, okay, fine, cut the baby in half. And the one who smothered her baby is like, perfect. I love that idea. And the real mom is like, oh my God, no, let her have him if like that means he'll live, right?
Yeah.
And King Solomon's like, okay, she's obviously the real mom.
Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, that's quite the example right there.
Yeah. So it just reminded me of like that kind of like wisdom to just get right to the heart of a matter. And that's how I was set free from the shackles of pre-med and ended up going pre-law the next semester.
Damn. And it's been just like you feel in your element sense. Like this was the right decision. This feels right. Like what joy did you feel with it?
It feels like there's this saying that like everyone's a smart or a genius in their own way, but if you ask a fish to climb a tree, they'll live their whole life feeling like they were stupid. It's like kind of that whole thing where like doing science and doing pre-med, it just always felt like an uphill battle. Like it like I could do it, but it didn't feel natural, and it didn't feel like my natural skill sets and everything lent itself to that. Yeah. But as soon as I started doing pre-law and then getting to law school and then like actually arguing in court, I was like, oh my God, like I felt like a fish in water. I was like, I'm bred for this. Yeah. So it definitely was like this relief of like, okay, finally, like something that doesn't feel like every little thing is like this struggle or like this uphill battle.
Yeah, I think that's something really beautiful because obviously we're talking love, dating, relationships, but your own personal self and growth, right? Like definitely. You just, and your family being supportive and your mom cutting into the chase of like what honestly serves you, what is right for you, what feels good. That's your truth, right? And it's beautiful for you to make that decision, like stand up to your parents, which is not easy, especially parents of color who was like, we did XYZ for you to get here and now you're not. And I'm like, yeah, it's a whole thing. Like, yeah. So that's really beautiful that you're able to have that support, and also you're able to see what it's like to, okay, this is what it's like stepping into my truth, which is really beautiful to see, and then see you just off to the races, which is like, and I very much relate to that because my mom wanted me to be a priest or a pharmacist, or both, a priest pharmacist. So,
wow. Those are very different.
Very different. Well, it's like Latino families or any family that have money, if like whoever has the most money, like that's what your mom wants you to be. So it's like, oh, Theo Hector, he's a pharmacist. So, you know, he has the Roomba. So you want a Roomba, you'd be a pharmacist or be like Father Juan the priest. But
Got it.
So I understand the struggle bus of going against the parents' wants and needs. But I think there's something beautiful in diving into that truth, which is what your content's all about, is just like, let's just call it what it is. Like, this is what it is. This is our Solomon chopping babies in half. Such a morbid example, but you get it. Like,
yeah.
Where did Mahamaven come into all this? Like, white mind.
Yeah. So when I graduated undergrad, like the last year of undergrad was like really tough in terms of just a lot of stuff that was going on personally. And So long story short, I graduated not with a job, like unemployed, which where I graduated from is like unheard of, right? Like everyone has something lined up. So I had to move back in with my parents, which was not easy, right? Like
relatable eye roll.
yeah, like it was just not like I felt like a failure. It just was not a very easy journey for me. And I remember like I was applying to jobs and I wasn't getting any of them. And so as like a last ditch effort, I applied to the White House internship. And I remember I almost didn't apply because I was like, I'll never get it. My dad was like, I mean, you're unemployed now. If you don't get it, you'll be unemployed. Like,
that's a good point.
Literally, like you literally have nothing to lose.
Dad was like, this is the lowest you're ever going to be. You can't get more lower than this. So I might as well.
Can't get worse. You might as well just throw the Hail Mary.
Exactly.
And so what happened was because I am an immigrant, I was born in Nigeria, my security clearance was extended. And so there were several months where like I just didn't know if I was going to get it, if I was not going to get it. They were like, we may have you renounce your Nigerian citizenship. And I was like, I mean, okay, like I haven't been back, like sounds a little extreme, but whatever. And it was in that period that I started making first, like I made a blog, like a written blog, and it was all about beauty. And I would take product photos. And I just remember like, I was so afraid to show my face because this was in 2013. Like social media was not something that people did. It was very weird, like especially having come from my background, like everyone was doing like iBanking and finance, right? So like I was just terrified. I was like, I don't want anyone to know it's me. And I mean, my siblings have been like almost as formative as my parents. Because I remember my sister was like, what are you doing? Just make YouTube videos if you want to do it. And I was like, I don't want people to know. And she was like, why? She was like, why do you care what people think? I was like,
I love this family. I love these siblings.
They're always just like reality checking. They're like, why do you care what people think?
What's up, y'all? Sorry to interrupt. I know you guys are enjoying the episode, but real quick, I want to tell you about the Patreon. You could join it, so many different perks, early access. You can even ask me a question that can even get on this show. So it's all patreon.com/selfhype. Check it out. Now, let's get back to it.
So she like forces me outside and she takes all these pictures of me. She was like, I want you to post these. Like, just come clean. Like, just do it. Like pushed me into like doing this thing. And that's what led me to film my first YouTube video. And I remember she gave me my first camera actually. And so I started making YouTube videos all about like beauty and stuff. And I just found that like I'm really grateful for that because like the content really just evolved with like where I was in life. So like at some point I was talking about my faith journey. At some point I was talking about law school. Like at some point I was talking about kind of like relationships in the context of faith and trying to figure out like what that looks like for me. And then now having come back to the context of like relationships, it's really kind of like a time capsule. And I'm sure it's going to keep evolving like as my life changes and lifestyle evolves, but that's how it started. And I just kind of like have continued to roll with it.
Amazing. That's phenomenal that you're wow, you had like an agent and a manager in your siblings that just like, just do the damn thing already. Just do the damn thing.
Literally.
And then it's beautiful that there's this new, again, another era of just this is what you want to do, just do it. Just that push.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to have people that see value in you that you may not
100%
yourself at that point.
100%.
That leap and to receive it's been freaking beautiful. You have a whole like
amazing.
A whole brand and all that, which is.
And I just remember, sorry not to cut you off.
No.
I've been going on TikTok. Like, I remember not understanding the platform at all. And literally one day my brother texts me and he's like, there's this weird app. I feel like you do really well on it. And I was like, what is it called? He's like, it's called TikTok. And I'm like, don't they dance on there? He's like, yeah, but like some people talk. So I don't know. Try it out and see. Literally, that's how I joined TikTok.
Wow.
Literally.
I love these eras, like, because I remember that. I'm like, I don't dance. It's like
Yeah,
kids that did weird
right,
voiceovers and stuff. I'm like, I
right.
don't do that. And then it's like, oh no, it could literally be anything.
Yeah.
So how'd you get from this beauty YouTube to, okay, now we're in TikTok, but like, where did the love dating space come in? Where did the relationship space come in? Like, and you said it kind of reflected your life a little bit. Was it a reflection, or did it just happen?
At that point, ironically, like, that wasn't a reflection of my current life, because I remember that was like 2020. And I think that was a point in my life where I was like, I'm good. I'm just going to have a seat on the bench and just chill out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it was like I had done one video, and this is what I always say about social media to people. Like, most of my content was very much about law school, and like I did a little bit of like social commentary, but like it wasn't resonating.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't passionate enough to be consistent with it. But every time I talked about relationships, it was resonating with people. Like, people were like, oh my God, like having that reaction, and relationships has always been something that I am like fascinated by, right? Like the interplay, the dynamics, like, so I started dabbling, and for a while I was going back and forth. But when I started working, it kind of led to this natural evolution, because I actually had in my workplace policy something that said like certain things you can't talk about it, and legal issues / issues that could be relevant to like court cases and stuff like that were off limits. So that took social commentary out of there. And then I kind of was like, I don't think, just on a hunch, I was like, I don't think it's smart to be talking about work-related things. I feel like that's an easy way for them to have a way to, penalize someone for their social media presence. And so I was like, okay, this feels safe. Like, talking about relationships feels like that safe area where I'm not overstepping the bounds in terms of like what I'm allowed to talk about at work. I'm passionate about it, and it's also resonating with people.
That's awesome. I and that's really cool that like it's you must really have a passion for it, because like you're a full-on lawyer, yet you make these TikToks and talk about love dating relationships. Like, you must really have a passion for it. And I love how you like thought critically of like, okay, what is something I truly enjoy and love? I'm already on this platform. That's not going to get in the way of whatever. And what's resonating with people. Like, exactly. I guess in this space, once you jumped into it, like you were like, oh, okay, I like talking about love dating relationships. And then you jumped into the pool and kind of got to see content and everything else. Like, what were some things of like, I got to roll up my sleeves and jump into this? Like, what were some like common trends that you were noticing that people just have it out of whack, that you're like, this requires some perspective and perception?
Because a lot of the content that I saw geared to women when it came to dating was about how to make him do something or how to make him feel something. And immediately I was like, this is terrible advice. Because the dating game is not about how to make him do anything. It's about how to properly observe, knowing how to get out quickly, knowing when it's worth investing time and energy. It's more of like an observation and a numbers game. That's one. And then two, like, I didn't see enough dating femininity content creators talking about like the internal work that needs to be done. A lot of it was just about why it's important to look good, and why it's important to smell a certain way, and why it's important to speak a certain way. And I was like, that'll all get you in the door. But I know for a fact that if you don't have something in you that's unique, and it's not like, oh, I'm grown and I have my own job and I make my own money, like something unique, if you don't have a personality, no one's going to want to be with you long term. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. And even in my own program that I have for women, 6 out of 12 weeks is all about just you. Like, we have not spoken about men once yet. And I'm sure some of them are like, girl, this is not what I follow you for dating. This is not what I signed up for. But it's like, no, because you need this part. This is the part that's actually going to keep you in the relationship. Because this is number 3. Another issue I had with the content is not enough of it was talking about the fact that how real are we keeping it?
Like this podcast or what?
This
episode? Like, we're keeping it real. Like we keep it real. It's
not enough of the content was talking about the fact that yes, a lot of women do fumble great guys because you weren't ready to date in the first place, and then your toxicity shows up, and it's like the narrative is always like, oh, we went out, we were dating, and then like, you know, he decided he didn't want to, you know, see me anymore. Now he's dating someone else, and like narrative is because she's weak or because I'm a baguette and she's like a bagel or she's Wonder Bread or whatever that video was. And it's like, sometimes it's because you're toxic, you're problematic, and sometimes it's not that he played you. Sometimes he just got to know you.
Yeah.
And was like,
I love that. That's that real though. Some people need to hear it. Like
a lot of people need to hear it. I needed to, and here I'm not saying it like high and mighty looking down on you. I used to be that girl that was like, he just couldn't take an Ivy League educated queen. But it's like, no, your career is your personality trait, and that's exhausting for anybody. Like, right. You need to find out who you are outside of, like, I get it. Like, you spend a decade plus working towards something, and it does become a big part of who you are. But like, you also need to take time to figure out outside of this, who is Fumi for real. That's what keeps someone like interested and invested and captivated and wanting to get to know you. And I don't think enough of the content is keeping it real in that sense.
You spit some freaking sermons on that one. I'm so glad you said that, because it's real. That's where personal development comes in. If you're perfect, what are we developing? If you lack zero self-awareness of what you need to develop, why are we even here? Like self-care, self-love. If you're perfect, what are we even doing? Like, so there, and I think it's a lot of it. And this is something I hit on too. I realized too, is like a lot of this content is just broadcasting hurt. It's like one's personal situation that the negative emotional state is creating an overarching narrative towards everyone, and that's being broadcasted. And obviously, people are like, "Yeah, I'm upset too," but that's why it's important for you to be in this space to be like, "Well, let's hold up a second. Yeah. Let's dive into. Let's be proactive in this situation versus just he's this, that, and the other." All that, because that's really a defense mechanism of you feeling hurt, right? Yeah. It's just like, but what's like the real of it? So I love when you talked about your program where it's like, you said the first, 6 weeks?
6 out of 12 weeks.
6 out of 12 weeks is just you.
There is not a single he in the curriculum. It is.
I freaking love
you.
I freaking love that. And I love our podcast conversation because I was able to dive a little more on the guy side, where it's like, a lot of these women are taking it so personal when really it's the guy who is also unhealed and dealing with issues, or he's not even ready, or he's been married the whole time and you just didn't know, and then he got caught. Like literally there's so many reasons that it doesn't, it's like, it's okay. Like, but also we got to figure out why these common trends are happening with these type of men.
Yeah.
Because they will slither in, and usually we know who's slithering and who's walking, and I'm like, I'll give him a chance. Or maybe he'll start walking. No, he's a tadpole. He
doesn't have legs.
Yeah, he doesn't. He literally does not have. He's a snake. He literally does not have legs. It's So that's amazing. So talk to me about this. Like, obviously, you started, and a big thing I want to hit on is this commonality of stepping into your truth. I think I'm building a title off this episode. Just this is good. We're cooking here. Again, stepping into your truth in terms of your personality and sharing who you are and what am I versus this is my job and this is how my hair looks and this is whatever. These are my angles. No, like, who are you as a person, and being secure with that and sharing that. I think it's beautiful. I really want to hit on that too. So like when was the moment that you felt like, oh, this is more than just commentary now. I need to like start rolling up my sleeves and like coaching and helping people. What were some successes that I guess I want to reframe the question of when was the moment where you're like, it's time to take action on a deeper level, and what would you say is your approach in terms of that?
Yeah. So I think when I realized that from the messages that I would get from women directly, like they would start by saying, "Oh my God, I love your content. Like I've seen everything." And you know, this is where it's funny. These are the funny examples. Like I've seen everything and I saw this and I felt like, you know, you'd really like agree with this. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, don't agree with that actually. So then I'm like, something's getting lost in translation, right? And you can't always help it because there's the algorithm and there's what performs, and what tends to perform is what makes people feel affirmed where they are. And a lot of people haven't done the work, right? Another indicator was I was getting a lot of scenarios, and I would find myself thinking like, okay, how do I address this? And then remembering that like I primarily make at this point short form content, and there's just no way, right? Like there just really isn't. And then reflecting on my own journey and thinking like, wait, before I could even get to a point where I could do a lot of the things that I advise women to do in these videos, right? Like there was a lot of internal work that had to be done, right? Like you can't just, and that's what I don't think people understand. Like you can't just copy paste different boundaries from places and think that you're going to actually like be able to stick to them when you're like sitting across from a guy that you're really attracted to and have great chemistry with. Like that ability comes from doing a fair amount of internal work on you, to where now the self-respect and the self-regard and the self-love is at a point where it's not just about like an arbitrary checklist of rules. It now becomes about like, well, I'm someone that I genuinely care about, and you can't do that to me. Not because Fumi said that it means that you don't like me, but because it shows a level of disrespect that I deserve better than. And if you haven't done the work, that's not an intuitive thing. That's why I always say like all the rules, all the content helps. The people it helps the most are the people who are not yet at that point of being in a place where they can intuitively set boundaries and enforce them with other people, right? It's kind of like a crutch in a way, because it's like, ideally you'd be able to do this, but you can't yet because there's a lot of internal work that you haven't done. And that's why I started with one-on-one coaching. And I think one of the things that's been like so rewarding is after working with a woman for 12 weeks, she actually starts to look completely different. Like the way she shows up on day one, drained, exhausted, like hunching over, not very sure of herself. So I had a session with a woman who's graduated, but she checks in every couple months. And she just looked like a completely different person. That's like the biggest, like, and she's in this amazing relationship, of course, but it's like, what happens is people show up to coaching and they expect to get all this dating advice. And I'm like, no, well, let's work on you. And what happens without fail is within 8 weeks, the guy shows up. And I'm like, yes, the guy's going to show up because now you're ready to receive him. The guy's not going to show up when you're like Raggedy Ann and don't care about yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think people think that that's like trite, or that's like, you know, something people just say, but there's so much truth to it. And I've seen it happen so many times coaching women one-on-one, where it's like, I didn't even have to tell her where to go to meet men. I didn't have to tell her, like, these men came into their lives while they were living the lifestyle that's fulfilling and doing the work internally to become that person, that girl, I should say.
Yeah. I freaking love that. Yeah, that's like, I hope everyone's listening on this, because I know everyone's like, tell me how to keep them interested. Tell me what I should text them. Tell me what photos I should use for my app. I'm like, who are you? how do you focus on you? How do you raise your vibration to, receive, to match that of what you want to receive? That's why I love that you said that, because I'm like, I always reaffirm the fact that like manifestation thinks it's like manifestation. Everyone thinks manifestation is like, this is, I want this.
Yeah.
But it's like you get what you are, and that is you doing the work in yourself. Because I think more often than not, a lot of people are waiting to be saved. They're waiting for that one person to come in to check all the boxes and to fix it and to all that, or like, once this will make me complete. Like this will be the one thing that will fulfill me and all that. But like, dude, are you able to fulfill yourself? And I think, and I want to add on to that just to reaffirm of like what Fumi's saying is like, as a dude, we can tell who, and I use this example, but we can tell who is a 24-hour McDonald's drive-through. I'm not in terms of like accessibility and self-worth and what have you. And then the dope ass nightclub that is $50 at the door, and I have to put on nice shoes and wait in line and all that. Like, I feel it on who I'm talking to. And also, if I'm not ready and I'm playing games, I know who's not going to deal with my mess as well. Like, I could get a taste of, I could take advantage of this situation in my immature masculine, me not being ready, wanting to play games. That's something I could take advantage of. That's easy. This is going to be a little more difficult. So I'm not even going to bother, or I'm going to try and probably fail. So but it really comes down to your authenticity, right? Stepping into your truth, the through line, all the way from you wanting to be a lawyer. See, it all kind of comes down.
I love
it. I love
that. I love that you said that, because it's almost like a controversial thing to say. It's this very controversial thing to say, because it almost like it then shifts the onus back to you, right? As a woman. But I feel like what people hear when you say something like that is a value judgment.
Yeah.
And that's really, not okay nowadays. And it's really something that people don't take kindly to. But I think, and here's what I try to explain with my content is like, because I do get pushback from women who say that I'm upholding certain misogynistic ideals and certain things that I've said. Besides the fact that I think they're reaching when they say that, right? But let's even, entertain that claim. It's like, my attitude is I'm a pragmatist, right? I believe that, the world is far from ideal, and there are a lot of things that should change, and it would be amazing if we could change them, right? And like, I 100% believe that, everyone should do what they can to kind of bring about the change that we all want to see. At the same time, I believe that it is only wise to equip yourself to thrive in the world as it is.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of content that I make. Right. I don't think it's beneficial for me to make a lot of content talking about how things should be, because then I'm preaching to the choir, I'm not helping you, and the guys who need that content the most are going to take one look at me and be like, boop, not trying to hear it.
Yeah.
So it's like, as content creators, we have that dilemma. It doesn't mean that we're like, this is what it should be, right? Like,
yeah,
ideally, the professor should be able to say you all get an A and everyone should keep showing up, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I always try to preface with the fact of like, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying, this is how it is. Like, I'm like, you asked, and I'm just telling you this is how it is. Like, Eli, how do guys view this? This is how they view it. I don't like that. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to. I get it.
Either. I don't like it either.
We all don't like it. I get it. But if you want to know, that's how it is. And so I love that you said, yes, we should all be working towards a greater tomorrow, but unfortunately, it's still today. So what are we going to do to have the best day we possibly can? The most efficient, most sustainable, most healthy today that we could possibly have. So when we talk about these things in terms of self, that's what it's all about, is self. That's why I'm like, what we're talking about is not so much like the guy, right? I'm like, well, I want him to like me, so I need to be this nightclub. Like, no, you need to be in your truth in terms of what fulfills you. Dive into that childhood of like, why do I want someone who doesn't want me? Like, make the hard questions, do the hard things. So you don't care if he's waiting in line or not. That's the whole point, is like, you are good. You got you. And this is why we're having these conversations. And if we didn't care as content creators and coaches, we'd be, he sucks and this is why, and that's what it is. You know, it's like, we have to challenge. That's the thing, we have to challenge. And if that does perk you up, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation, right?
Exactly.
So I love that you're in this space, and I love that you are doing this, and I love how much it's growing, and with the podcast and everything else, and you had me on. So Fumi, I like woke up and looked at my TikTok, and it just blew up with all these people, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then Fumi, you replied to one of mine, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, this whole new network of human beings that jumped onto my social, and I'm like, that's when we got to connect, and it's been such a beautiful ride in the process. So I just want to thank you for the algorithm bump. Appreciate you doing God's work. I really appreciate it. So with that said, I would say, like, what would you say in terms of you? Because I know you hit on, we talk about these things in terms of women and everything else and love, but like through the process of, I guess, your life, how did you have to get out of your own way to receive the love that you have today? Like, what, based on, and then maybe it was through diving into these experiences as a coach, or maybe you learned it earlier that got you ready to dive into this work. Like, on your personal journey, what were some shifts that you made for you to be at your utmost now?
Yeah. So
what's up, y'all? Sorry to interrupt. I know you guys are enjoying the episode, but real quick, I want to tell you about the Patreon. You could join it, so many different perks, early access. You can even ask me a question that can even get on this show. So it's all patreon.com/selfhype. Check it out. Now let's get back to it.
I think the biggest thing, and this is a common question, is like, how much healing do I have to do? How much internal work do I have to do before I'm ready, right? And people hear you say certain things like, oh, you should be healed, or you should do a certain level of work, and they think you're saying you have to be completely healed, before you can get into a relationship, or before you're worthy of love. And that's not where I stand, because I feel like healing is a lifelong thing, right? Like, I feel like, things have happened and things continue to happen, and you'll always be healing from something. Yeah. And healing is not a linear process either. So there's no way to know, like, oh, I'm completely healed from this. But what I say is, you have to be healed enough to function. And I feel like for me, I knew that I was in a good place when I was healed enough to function. And by that, I just mean healed enough to be self-aware. Because the biggest indication that someone has done zero work is just the complete and just utter total lack of self-awareness. If you think that you're perfect and that all your exes fumbled you and you've never done anything wrong, you're not self-aware. I don't need to hear your specific story. I just know you're not self-aware. Because self-awareness comes with, even if this person was wrong, what was my role in it? And that's such an offensive thing to say today, because it sounds like blame. And I always say accountability and blame are not the same thing. Because I believe that the person who's best to hold accountable is the person who's in control. And the only person that you can control is yourself.
I felt that. I was just like, and again, this is the challenge. These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. These are the conversations you need to have, is that self-reflection, is those hard questions. I love that. Because that is a red flag for me. Like, if I'm dating a woman and I'm like, yo, talk to me about your ex. Oh, he was a piece of crap. He was this, he was that. Oh, how about your last ex? Oh, he was a piece of crap. He was this and that. It's like, I'm like, every day a guy I dated since 5th grade has been a narcissist. And I'm like, really? Wow. Okay.
Because self-awareness would tell you that it sounds like something's wrong with you at some point. Because then the question is, so what do you have in common with these people? Right. Why do you keep running into them? Like, out of 7 billion people on this planet, why do they keep finding you? Right? So it's like that complete and utter lack of just self-awareness, I agree, is a red flag. It's like every girl was crazy. Every last one. Every last one you dated?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is a challenge, right? Because I'm like, the last thing you want to do is like talk about how your ex was like good or not bad. Like it triggers some people, but it's like you got to ask yourself, like, this is how he's gonna like talk about you. Like this is how, like, if it does end, no, it's gonna last forever. It's gonna be magical. No, if it does end, this is how he's gonna talk about you. And even if it was bad or was this or all that, you know, I at least want to say like, oh, these are the qualities that I really enjoyed about it, and these are the things of why it didn't work out, and this was how I was an active participant and what worked and what didn't, and this is where I'm at going forward. And that is like, oh my goodness, this person's so reflective. I could work with this, right? Because that is ultimately what you want to hear. I know a lot of people like, no, just crap on them, make them be awful. I want to be better than them. But I'm like, is that I think being a little petty? Like, what? I mean, I think you're being a little immature with that. But yeah, self-reflection is freaking key. And I love that you said that, because it's like, it's, and I think it's something that just doesn't end, you know, it's not just in the beginning of the relationship, it's all throughout, right? I'm like, you could be self-reflective of, he's not talking to me the way he wants to, or I feel unsafe, or, you know, or I feel I'm taking advantage of him, or these are all like, if you, usually when we feel tension in the relationship, it's easy to cower. It's easy to not talk about it. It's easy to just play house and pretend. But I would assume that self-reflection is pretty important in the relationship as well. Like, how would you have someone like flex that self-reflection with their partner, like being in a relationship?
Yeah. One thing I think everyone should do is have like a journaling habit. And the reason why I like firmly believe in journaling, like I've been journaling almost every day for the last decade. And the reason why I believe in it is because your thoughts and emotions have a way of seeming harmless and normal in your head. It's like, I don't even know what a great analogy is, but they just seem like rational and normal, like in your head always, right? Like, so I've found so many times that like when I externalize what I'm feeling on paper, I read it and I'm like, that's for me. Like, first of all, never ever like think that again. Like, it just is such a reality check, and it gives you perspective. Like being able to read, this is what I'm feeling, and then you can see like, wait, no, actually, like this person might have meant something completely different, or, you know, yeah, this person didn't see me when I walked in. That doesn't mean everyone in the office hates me. That just means that maybe they were really absorbed in like what they were doing. Like things like that. That perspective helps you build a level of emotional intelligence that's really, really important. And it helps you begin to like trust your intuition more, and trust your perspective more, and trust your interpretations more, because it's like, the more you have that perspective, the more level-headed you are. And for me, it was like going through that. And then in the context of like a relationship, one thing that I don't think gets said enough to women, I'm like afraid.
Because you know this is where we need to go. This is good. When you get a little tense, like that's a good spot.
Exactly. I think unfortunately, like, and part of it is like the messaging and the media and like the movies and all of that. There's the fact that you get into a relationship does not make someone else responsible for your feelings and emotions and happiness. The better you are at a healthy level of self-nurturing, which means like he does something annoying and you don't need to react to every little thing. Sometimes you can just bust out your journal and write it down and get some perspective and see like, this isn't that big of a deal, right? And this is offensive because people are like, I shouldn't have to water myself down to be in love. Like I shouldn't have to stifle myself to be in love. And it's like, I think men do this intuitively almost. They overlook a lot, right? Like, and these are things that, like, trust me, I'm not coming on a high horse. These are things that I learned in the context of my own relationship, where he's like, this thing you do drives me insane. You do it all the time. Like, I'm an eye roller, right? ever since I was a little kid, I would get in trouble for yeah, I do it without even like I would get in trouble for rolling my eyes as a kid. But I do it without even realizing it. And when we're arguing, like I roll my eyes all the time. Yeah. And he's like, it drives me insane. But I know that you do it without thinking. So there's no need to like give you a hard time about it because I know you're not doing it to intentionally disrespect me.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that men do this almost better than women intuitively. Like they just are like, I love this woman. Here, I know the things that she does that are annoying. And I've decided to be with her. So I'm not going to make a big deal like of every single thing, right? But as a woman, I would take certain things really personally. Like, and it's like, he's not, for example, like he's loud. Like if he yawns, it's like, "Ah!" And like, it would startle me like in the beginning a lot. And I'd be like, why can't you yawn quietly? And he's like, I don't know. Like, what? Like, why can't you not roll your eyes for like 5 seconds? You know, like,
yeah. Yeah.
And it's like people come with all of these like quirks and idiosyncrasies and like things that they do. But like part of coexisting with someone is picking your battles, right? And a fair amount of self-nurturing. And that was like a dumb example, right? Because it's eye rolling and like yawning. But like that's just an analogy for whatever it is, things that can range to even like moderate to more serious. Yeah. A fair amount of self-nurturing is healthy because you either decide, all right, I'm not going to pick this battle, or you go into the conversation with a lot more emotional intelligence to say, this doesn't need to be this catastrophic fight. Here's how we can talk about it in a way that like reinforces the relationship rather than deals like another blow to it.
Right. That is, I think that's a beautiful example. I love that you did the yawn and eye roll because I think a lot of people like it's such an easy to digest thing that a lot of people also relate to, but I love that's a basis of so many other things. Because I mean, and it's like to pick your battles, right? And I will say, there's pros and cons of being a man, and I will say that is a pro. Like we just see what's right in front of us, and our peripherals aren't that great. We just okay, girlfriend, love, work, job. You know, friends, fun, you know, and there are pros and cons. And that is one pro of like, yeah, she leaves hair everywhere. Yeah, she leaves the lights on. There are 8 glasses of water around this apartment every damn day. But you leave one hair on the sink from when I shaved. It's like, you're like, can you please clean off your facial hair? I'm like, well, there's like, I'm holding 80 glasses of water. And I'm like, yeah, whatever you say, honey, it's fine. But that's the thing, like everyone is different and you are allowed to obviously speak your mind, but not every battle has to be a battle. Not every conversation even has to be a battle. Yeah. And I love that you said pick and choose what that is for the sake of, you know, what like we want to enjoy this ride, right? So that's beautiful. I love everything you're hitting on. And I love that we got to see some eye rolls here as well. So, and we know it's not me. It's
exactly
just, okay. I love it.
I literally, without even thinking about it, it happens. It's crazy to the point that like my parents had to come to the school and be like, if you could just overlook this, she does. I promise you, she doesn't even know that she's like doing it. She doesn't. It's just, I don't know where she got it, but like, that's just her.
That's so funny. And that's just you. And we love you for it. All the quirks, all the things. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you beautiful. That's what makes you successful. And all things. Fumi, thank you so much for this time, diving into your story, sharing about why you are the way you are, you beautiful human, you giving your skills and mindset and perspective to so many people and helping them along the way and seeing the transformation time and time again. Fumi, how can we connect with you? How can we jump into your ecosystem of gifts and perspective and coaching? How can we connect?
Yeah. So you can find a lot of that on my website if you want to work with me one-on-one, mahamaven.com/coaching. And as far as like content, I'm most active right now on Instagram. So check me out on there. I also have a newsletter. So if you want to go deeper and just kind of have sort of more off the cuff, me answering submitted scenarios and all of that kind of thing, the newsletter is really great. And the podcast is coming back. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be on YouTube. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere that you can stream podcasts, it'll be there. So yeah.
Love it. So everyone, all those links will be in the show notes, the caption, all that. Follow her, digest the content, jump into her services and program. She's a phenomenal human being. Fumi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening to the SelfHype podcast, brought to you by Chobo Studios. If you love this podcast, if you're vibing with it, give it a 5-star review. Share it, like it, say something what you love about it. It helps me out so freaking much. You have no idea. And the Patreon. Thank you for my Patreon supporters. There's going to be so much more extra goodies from this episode, me answering your questions, and so many extra ways that I'm going to engage with you in that Patreon. So if you haven't joined, join it. And maybe you want to dive into coaching. 8-week personal development coaching program I run, where I want you to be your best you. I want you to be your best you. And that is what it's all about. So tons of ways to connect with the community, tons of ways to connect with me. And thank you so much for watching and supporting. I truly, it's a blessing that I get to do this. And it's thanks to you. So thank you again, and I will see you next week.
The SelfHype Podcast.